Right. Good morning in the UK. Good evening in Australia. And long overdue, I'm back with my lovely friends, Medyhne and David. And as you can see from our backgrounds, we have London Bridge and Judgment Day in the backgrounds. And I think everyone's going to know what we're talking about. What a historic 24 hours it's been for everyone, hasn't it? What about you, Medyhne?
Well, I thought I'd show my allegiance and wear my white hat. Am I allowed to say that? And yes, it's been mammoth, and it seems a long time coming, doesn't it? Because as we believe with the narrative that we're following, it's going to be the time for more activation of hopefully more work on the side of the good guys. And so this is the point, or the trigger point, so we hear, from which everything kicks into gear in terms of really upping the plan of the alliance. Can I say that word?
Yeah.
Good. So I'm excited about that. I have empathy, of course, for anyone out there who has followed the narrative and is in any sort of mourning. I have compassion and empathy for those people. But for me and the narrative that I'm following, I find it very positive in terms of the progress of the planet. And so I'm excited.
Absolutely. What about you, David? How have you taken the news?
It's really interesting because just the night of last night when I went to sleep, I just got something on Facebook where somebody was, they just announced that it wasn't critical condition yet. They were just kind of concerned. And of course, we've seen these articles pop up every couple of months. They're concerned about her health. So it's happened again. And then just as I went to sleep, I kind of said to myself, I wonder what's going to happen. I mean, obviously, I think it was announced on the 8th of the 9th in the UK, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, the 8th.
Yeah.
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 My sister's
So,
birthday.
so, yeah, so I went to bed and I was like, I wonder what's going to be announced on the 9th of the 9th. Obviously, when I woke up, it was the 9th, and that happened. And then I was like, okay, it's really interesting. But yeah, obviously a lot of excitement. I think we've all been talking about this for well over a year now, about when it's going to happen, and it finally happened. And it's interesting to see just such a massive contrast of opinion. Like the West Australian here re-released their cover page, the front page, because when they print the paper, she hadn't died yet. And the headline was Queen dead at 96. And all these people are up in arms about such a disgraceful headline and distasteful headline. It should read something like Queen gracefully passes away at 96 or something, and it's just interesting seeing all the memes and the opinions of the conspiracy theorists out there saying, like, I'm glad the witch is dead and all this stuff. She was the king of the Dracos, the queen, whatever, the queen of the Dracos. And you've got all the normies saying, oh, she was such a beautiful woman. And it's just really interesting seeing it all. Like,
It's surreal. I've got this great one I've come up with. Lizzie the lizard has left the building.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because for me, that's what sort of it really raised for me is all these things where we talk about the Great Awakening, but I think I've always seen, and I think we've discussed this before. Sorry, my cat's going mad on my lap. One of my cats is shut in, Idris, in disgrace because he chased his sister up the tree. So he's in my office with me, so he can't chase her, and he's going mad on my lap, clawing away. But yeah, for me, it's like the Great Awakening has always been about the awakening of our own individual potential, and reactivating these strands of DNA and these powers within us and our discernment and our intuition. And I agree with you completely in terms of looking at the different ways about, as Medyhne said, having compassion for those that are on a different timeline, on a different reality, and for those of us here. But one of the things that really hit home for me, and I did briefly, I haven't listened to much at all, but I briefly heard a lovely video that Megan Rose did about there's so much when people that watch channels like ours about sensationalizing things and sort of almost making it into a game and a bit of gossip. But when we really sit back and see the significance of things like this, regardless of when she actually died, to me is almost irrelevant. about what it means
Yeah.
to so many different people. So there's some people in one camp, you know, David, you sent me the interesting article, I'll be careful how I say it, about the crimes that supposedly the royal family were found guilty of with regard to young people that went missing, etc. And so there's a lot of serious things behind all these issues that we discuss, that so many people have had really devastating experience of. And I think, you know, this is so significant because we know this has been a key marker for so long. And I think we've been talking about, the three of us have been talking for a year now, and everyone watching, about preparing ourselves, getting vibrant, getting fit and healthy, ready to really go on to the next stage. And I think that that's what I feel like. I had an extra long cold shower this morning, like, right, I'm ready for this.
It's so synchronistic that we met today, you know, on the actual day that it was announced. So I think that's really an interesting coincidence, inverted commas. Yeah. And I also think, you know, what you're talking about here is all about people stepping into their own power. So it's all about their own individual sovereignty. And when you think about the planet, who is the greatest symbol of you know, of being a ruler on our planet, and that would be her. So, you know, this is really going to tap into the consciousness of all souls on some level and question where they are in their own individual sovereignty.
I think that's such an important point, and I think it's really, you know, it doesn't matter where you sit, and I would encourage everyone to be exactly where they need to be on this, you know, because things like this, any situation, look at Stockholm syndrome, you know, there's never a clear cut in terms of emotions of this, and it's okay to feel mixed emotions, and it's okay to have empathy for those around you that are seeing things in a very different light and going through very different emotions. But I think what you've just said there is absolutely key, Medyhne, in terms of this is an absolute symbol. We've been talking about taking back your sovereignty, whether it's on the financial, the health, the education, your day-to-day life, the food you eat. And no greater symbol has been, we've been talking about stop following leaders and, you know, take back your own power. And this is an absolutely message clear to everyone, wherever you sit, that, you know, this particular sovereignty is gone. Where is yours? And that's what we're going to be discussing a lot today, is about flipping the narrative about where we sit on all these things. You know, I posted something on my Instagram yesterday about it's not the circumstance, you know, boiled water hardens an egg but softens potatoes. It's, you know, what are you doing with this information? And we can take all of these things, and it can harden us, it can soften us, it can make us stronger, it can make us more vibrant. What are we going to choose for this to make us? David, I mean, in terms of sort of, you've been having some real things in terms of flipping the narrative. I mean, there's so many things, there's so much sort of fear out there, real or perceived. It doesn't really matter, because, you know, people, whether it's real or perceived fear, your body reacts chemically to it in the same ways. I mean, let's take the food shortages, for example. There's so many different ways that you can look at this, isn't it?
Yeah. Over the last year and a bit, I've seen so many more product recalls, and it's usually always a contamination. And this week, just in the last few days, in fact, I've seen loads more product recalls for different things. The thing I would like to kind of point out is that when I first saw these things, I was like, yeah, it's the way I had to cleaning up, and maybe it is. But then you get those big things happening in the US, where they have whole processing plants that are just completely taken out or burnt, or the animals, you know, cold and things like that. And I can see how it could be construed either way. You know, it could be you could look at things so many different ways. My kind of question is, if it is going to be that, like, why are they taking things out with such drastic measures? A product recall seems so much more, you know, I guess organic, if that makes sense, you know, and kind of slowly structured to kind of achieve an ultimate goal. I do think in some instances that perhaps the Black Hats did probably take out some food processing plants because they do have still some power, you know. I'm not, but I think ultimately you can see where things are being cleaned up, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's a combination of the positive forces and the negative forces, and you know that then often the dark will do one thing, and then the white will respond and utilize what they've done for the good, and turn it around to become something that they can utilize to go get ahead with their plans to you know, get rid of all the nefarious activity on the planet. So, you know, you look at things like the food supply shortage, and we can turn that around and say that some of it will definitely be about getting rid of the chemical and processed GMO foods. You look at all the agenda going on with the insects at the moment, and the cochineal, I think it's cochineal in the foods, you know, and they're sort of sneaking it into the product labels and things like that. So, you know, I think that we need to, when we see these things happen, say in our mind, look, you know, there is a positive aspect always of everything that's going on, and that we can see that, you know, to take down the dark on this planet, it couldn't be something that was done in the open. It had to be completely hidden, and it had to be completely done under subterfuge, so that the dark wouldn't retaliate. So there was no other way that it could be done for the white hats or the you know, the good guys to be able to take back this planet. So I mean, I think it's really obvious that, you know, there is definitely some activity going on in that respect, and I think there's a lot going on, a lot more than we realize. That's just my intuitive feeling.
I agree with both of you, and I think it's really significant. Going back to Queenie, one, it's not a coincidence that it's happened within a week of our new Prime Minister in the UK, who happens to be Liz. So that's interesting. So, you know, as we were wishing at the start, no such thing as coincidences. But also, for me, it's quite significant that supposedly she died in Scotland, and the code name for when she died in Scotland is Operation Unicorn rather than Operation London Bridge. Now, to me, unicorns, I can't even say the word about smiling. They're magical. They're healing. They're beautiful. They're hopeful. They conjure up everything that is good. So I think a lot of it. Yes, I love having these discussions, and I love the fact that everyone around the globe is going to be having their own discussions with their own groups of friends, because the whole point is when we have these discussions and we really listen to each other, we're expanding our consciousness. But going back to the food thing, is it's at the end of the day, a lot of us, are we ever going to get full disclosure and know everything? Probably not. But what are we going to do with that information? And what I'm seeing is the people that are watching channels like us and having these sort of discussions. Can you see Idris? He's really joining in on it all. Witch's cat. He's really enjoying the conversation, but you know, there's nothing but positive that's come out of it from the people that are watching channels like this, because for one, everyone's much more aware of the food and water that they are consuming. Secondly, a lot of people are starting to re-educate themselves to relearn how to grow their own food, or joining in at communities that are doing the same. It's like having a toddler on my lap, sorry. And so there's so much positive things that are coming out of this discussion. So how much is controlled by white hats, black hats and things is really hard sometimes to know. But the fact that so many positive discussions and actions are coming out of it is absolutely magical to me. And, you know, thank you, Operation Unicorn. Thank you, Unicorn, for being part of this. And, you know, remembering the magic in all of this, going back to what we started talking about at the start, about, is the Great Awakening all about us taking back our sovereignty, us not relying on others, us realizing our hidden powers and everything? Again, to me, that's exactly what a unicorn sums up to me.
And isn't it interesting too that here in our part of the world, she passed on the 9th of the 9th, 2022. So you turn the 9s around, and it's three sixes. I mean, there's so much signaling as well going on with the timing and the event, and you can't fail to see that there's all these so-called, synchronicities and strange signalings that are going on with it all as well. So obviously there's a lot going on that we don't know the full story.
Yeah. And let's look at some of the other things, how we can look at turning the narrative. So let's look at all the censorship things. Now, what are the two sides to the story about flipping the narrative on, censorship inherently, to me, I think, never a good thing. But how else can we look at it?
David, sorry, go ahead, David.
No, you go first. You're right.
Well, we have to find alternatives, really, because if the thing that we have presented before us to work with is not working for us, and it's not a fair and just system, then we have to find other alternatives and other ways. And so, people are becoming creative and inventive at being able to express their truth in other ways, like, how we use code and everything when we talk, but also different platforms, and also people coming together in other ways that they didn't before, because the standard ways that we used to use, you can't always say, what you want to say. So then we have to expand our own personal ways of interacting in the world. So I think it's a very positive thing in that humanity has to become creative, and it also allows for people, through the misinformation, for people to be able to see the deception and the fact that we are not having a fair, open discussion on virtually anything on these mainstream platforms anymore. So that wakes people up, that makes people realize that we don't live in a world that is the world we thought we lived in before all this happened, before the whole pandemic happened.
Yeah, I think it's a test in many ways. Look at all the people that got deplatformed, whether they started a new channel or they just moved to a different platform entirely. It makes you stronger. If you've got a message that you want to share, you're going to move hell or high water to get it out there. And I think that for anyone who, I haven't been deplatformed, but I know a lot of people that have, and they just, they start a new channel, or if they get deplatformed again and they just keep doing it, or they go to a completely new platform altogether and then start a new, and work around the system. It's a system that's broken and corrupt, but you have to work with what you have, don't you? So
how did you get around it, Catherine?
Pardon?
How did you find getting around that when you were deplatformed?
Initially, I found it really heartbreaking because I didn't get a warning. I woke up one morning and suddenly everything was gone. And trying to communicate with these platforms, you just can't. You can't pick up a phone and speak to customer services. So that's out there. But like anything, once I'd sort of sat with it for a bit and thought, right, this is a really good opportunity to say, what do I want to go there? And the only downside I found really was that I had a lot of my animal health videos on there that I'd built up over years, and they were gone forever, because at that stage I didn't know to take backups. I had no reason to think that they'd be gone. But yeah, it was very short-lived, the disappointment. And it was like, okay, it brings you up to the next level of resilience, and still is. So, I've spent a lot of money creating my own platform. We all know how time-consuming it is just to get your videos up on what platform, but also I'm on Rumble and BitChute as well. So yes, you have to adjust things, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. What doesn't break you makes you stronger. And this might be a minor thing for people, but it's so important, because if it's like, how do you tackle any of these things that happen in your life? Are you going to sort of admit defeat, or are you going to say, no, actually, this is really important to me. Let me find, other ways of doing it. And what I also found was really interesting, and this has been one of my main learning points throughout the last 2.5 years. And it's such a cliche, but finding out who your real friends are, because when things happen, it's very clear who steps in to help and who doesn't. And I think this has been really, really key for me on an individual level in tuning in my intuition as well, because it is easy to get led astray by all sorts of different information sources. And you know, some people are very charming and very charismatic and, you know, really have got the gift of the gab. And so, you know, again, I've just been looking at that experience, not in terms of, most of the time, of course, sometimes I slip into judgment, but most of the time in terms of, okay, we're all on our own individual journeys, but what's the lesson in this for me?
It's about refining your discernment, isn't it? You know, this whole censorship, you know, saga that we've been through, we can use it to really refine our ability to use our intuition, to go in it and follow our inner gut, to be able to work out what aligns with our truth and what doesn't. And these are such powerful lessons as we go into, you know, an evolved society. We need to be able to know these things before we can really expand to the next level.
I think also the other thing is I think for anyone watching throughout the last sort of 2.5 years, I think every single viewer, every single one of us, we're also refining our investigative skills, because we're learning not to take things at face value. So even something as, you know, really in the scale of world events, having a YouTube channel taken down is absolutely insignificant, apart from it triggers the different things of censorship. But also, you know, having a look and see which channels really have been taken down and which channels the owners have taken down themselves, because when you click on an old link, the message you get is very different. And I think, you know, all of these things, they're all making us stronger on an individual level. They're all making us more comfortable with who we are and where we sit. But one of the main things I've learned from it is it's not easy. It's not easy when you're involved in all these things and involved in a lot of research. But equally, I have to keep making my mind, I have to keep reminding myself, don't make assumptions, because even, you know, little things like, even if you've deliberately for some reason chosen to take your channel down, or chosen to put out some misinformation, or been asked to, there's so many reasons for that. And I think human nature, especially with what we're uncovering now, is you always jump to the negative, but there could be a really positive reason for it as well. And what I have to realize is there's so much I don't know, and I'm happy not knowing a lot of it.
I think, Dave, you've used it to really build your own channel in terms of your music, because you've been able to acknowledge and recognize that that's really what means the most to you, and that's what you're really going to focus on. So that's a really positive example of how this sort of process unravels.
Yeah, this whole last, I mean, obviously every year really, but every year since the last 7 years has really been just a self-discovery journey, and it just keeps going. You know, it will continue for as long as I live. But you know, you kind of every year you get to know yourself a little bit better, hopefully, and then you get to figure out, yeah, exactly what you said, is what's most important to you in this moment or in this life, and put that attention where it's needed, because we can, and I was guilty of this a lot, is putting not necessarily the attention in the wrong spots, but in the spots that you know, there's definitely things that I've kind of just taken massive detours on, you know, and whether it's out of fear or out of fear of you know, not feeling self-worthy enough of doing it, or whatever it is. But it's important as you get to know yourself better to pinpoint like exactly what the reason is. Like, what's the reason that you're really taking a detour or putting things off or whatever it is. And that's kind of the human condition, isn't it? Like the personal development journey.
Yeah, I often find with people that they're like, their true soul mission of why they're here is often the hardest thing for them to fully step into. For some reason, they have obstacles, blockages. There's different things that they find, and whether it's subconscious or conscious, that block them from actually fully stepping into the thing that they're really here to do. And often it's about clearing those obstacles and being able to, you know, activate our soul's yearning, which is our true, you know, passion. Obviously, you know, for many of us, you know, it can be so many different things, but yeah, I find that is something that so many people mention as clients as well, you know, that they've got something that they really want to do, but there's always something that's in the way. And I think that's the human condition that you're talking about as well.
Usually it's the money thing, because they're like, well, how am I going to make ends meet? How am I going to be able to live off of that? You know, and we've been programmed to think that typically what our soul's mission is a pipe dream, you know. So
and it's been
we have to
prevented
that's
too, you know, it's been
yeah, for sure.
prevented, so we can't fully empower ourselves and be in our full, you know, potential, because that's not going to aid their agenda. So it's purposely stopped, because I'm sure that on some level they recognize how important that is for humanity to really
absolutely
evolve.
Yeah. That's one of the main things, isn't it? Like, if everybody stepped into their power and followed their soul's mission, it'd be night and day, the world we live in.
Yeah,
that's why I just so love seeing what we've done. I mean, again, we're just talking about, you know, I'm just talking about, say, the YouTube community, because it's been something that's been really important in my life for the last couple of years. I would never have met you two if had that not been the case. And what I'm really loving is I'm loving seeing this complete diversity. You know, I've used the analogy many times before because it's so simple. If you've got a football team or a soccer team, you can't all be goalkeepers, you can't all be strikers. And what I love is I really think at the moment, even despite all the censorship, there's someone and something for everything at whatever stage of the journey you're at. And the thing is, all of us, every single person listening, you know, us three, we're all changing each day. You know, you get that next level of understanding and it takes you to a different place, and you start following a different direction. And I think that's absolutely lovely. I think it's just so wonderful to see every single person, whether it's participating and listening, whether it's expanded their consciousness through, you know, looking at subjects they'd have never looked at before, whether it's people that are talking out about it and sharing their skills and their passions. It's really hard, going back to Queenie, you know, it's so easy to be black and white, right or wrong, but let's play devil's advocate here. I heard an interview on one of the news channels, I can't remember which, this morning, about what amazing, it was a bishop talking about her religious and her faith. Now, everyone watching this might have very different opinions as to what her religion and faith was or wasn't, and are we ever going to really know? Who knows? But one thing I just had a eureka moment on that is, whatever faith she was following, she certainly followed it, and it was a huge part of her life. and what I thought is, now, who knows what it is, but what I thought, it's like, so many of us are actually, like you were saying, David, so afraid or put off or nervous for financial reasons or ridicule to actually follow what's deep down for us. So even from whether you're thinking at labeling someone or good or bad or whatever, there's always so much we can learn from it, isn't it? And it's always so much more complex than just putting that one label on it.
Definitely. The more you know, the more you realize you don't is the
absolutely
saying.
Yeah.
I
mean,
a wise person knows they know nothing.
Yeah, you do know nothing. I mean, it's like, even look at how we've all got people in our own lives that we might have thought we knew really well. And then something happens and you're like, oh my goodness,
like the last 2 years,
I can't believe this is the same person, sort of thing.
Just everything. It's just, there's nothing that brings out your true character like a worldwide psyop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, it's just so interesting. And you see, kind of, we've spoken about this before. I don't think either of us probably identified as being a rebel in high school at all. And there are plenty of rebels that you kind of, that I bet you all wearing these and taking the thing. And you kind of like, what are you doing? You know, like, where were you? Like, what happened? You know, what happened after high school? You know what I mean?
I'm thinking of a particular friend that I went to school with, and she started a whole incredible movement. I won't mention names, but it was huge in Australia and worldwide, and she was the head of it. And I thought, wow, go her. Wow, it was a really great movement. Yeah. And she was the first person to, you know, do this and to get these and to advocate for that. You know, it's like people surprise you completely, don't they, from the choices that they've made. And then your challenge, I guess, is to not then judge that or say, you know, this or that, and that's the whole challenge with it. We're really needing to tap into our highest nature, you know, as human beings, and to be gracious. Yeah.
I'm finding that such an interesting journey. So I've got here, sitting here, I've got lovely Idris, who might, oh, you can't really see with this.
Can't see you now.
Block myself. But yeah. And you know, for me, when it's an animal, so I've got my two lovely little Romanian cats, I've got lots of other cats as well, and Idris has just chased Mitzi up a tree. This is relevant, folks. But I can forgive Idris so easily because he's being a cat. He didn't hurt her. Brothers and sisters have squabbles, and she was fine. She came down. I was a little bit, well, she's right up the top of the tree, just as I hit. But my point is, with my cats, it's so easy for me to not judge and forgive and understand why they're behaving in certain ways and everything like that. And now with humans, interestingly, I find it much more difficult because and this is just me, I'm not saying everyone is like this, but it's really fascinating to see why certain things we find so difficult to understand or forgive. I mean, as I said, what I'm realizing with all levels of these things is just when you accept there's so much you don't know, and you can never understand what life experiences people have had that have made them into the person that they are today. You know, it's very easy if you rescue an animal that's been mistreated, you go into that relationship with a level of understanding and empathy for what it's made them and how they're reacting to their life are there. But with humans, we're so judgmental, a lot of us, aren't we? And I will put my hand up to this. It's something, it's been my biggest lesson for the last 2 years, and I am still learning it every single day, is how we let go of that judgment.
You know what? You know, the funny thing, I think that what I see as the issue with that too is that, and this is on a personal level too, I sort of have seen humanity as being far more aware and evolved than they actually have proven to be, and it's sort of a frustration and a bit of a disappointment in what has evolved, because I think I put them more on a pedestal than where they were actually, and that's not their fault, you know, it's just who they are. But I think what we've had expectations of humanity that have been quite high, but then when we see all this unfold, they haven't met that expectation. And I think that's often what causes a lot of judgment and frustration, or even for some, you know, resentment or anger or whatever, because we thought they were more awake, aware, whatever you want to call it, than they actually are. And like you say, you know, if it was an animal, we wouldn't judge that. But because it's a human being, we you know, we relate it to I think that's a big problem.
I think we all would have just thought that people would have stood up for their freedoms a little bit more, don't you think? Like, it's not too much to ask, is it? I mean, but
well,
unfortunately,
it's like,
unfortunately, a lot of people didn't know their freedoms were in jeopardy, and that's the biggest thing. It's easy. I mean, as far as judging goes, like it's easy to, when you know people are being mind controlled, it's very easy to just kind of forgive them, because they don't know they're being mind controlled, you know. So
and they're very sweet, because they just comply and they're sweet. They just want to, you know, they just want to.
They think they're doing the right thing, you know.
They don't want to have.
They think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure they do, but I think the survival.
Some of them do. Some of them do.
Yeah,
not all of them.
But I also think, actually, interestingly, the survival instinct on an individual level, we've seen this, that in so many scientific experiments and in real life, that people will shock you about what they'd be prepared to do to survive. But also you see that in the animal kingdom. You know, in the animal kingdom, in a lot of herd environments or pack environments, if there's one member of the pack or herd that's bringing them into wheat, they'll shun them out. So, you know, are we really, you know, we've lost on a conscious level that connection with nature and things, but deep down, regardless of what alien race we came and have been mixed and spliced with, deep down, are we much more sort of basic animals than we give ourselves credit to? And one of the coaches I work with, it's stuck with me so much. Carl Cease always used to say, you know, no one ever breaks your heart, they break your expectations. And that comes back to me time and time again. How much of our disappointment is our expectations of how others should behave that's been broken?
I think it's huge. Yeah.
But at the same time, and we said this off camera as well, your expectations are built off of previous experiences with that person, aren't they? It's, you know what I mean? So they're building this expectation with you, or you're basing the expectation based off of their behavior. So when it comes to the crunch and they don't meet that expectation, it's not a completely invalid expectation.
I agree.
I don't think.
Yeah, it's your perception of reality, isn't it? So,
True.
you know,
That's true
having
as well.
those rose-colored glasses and just seeing that people will be able to see through, you know, lies and untruths in a way that they can't. And I that's something I always put people in on a personal level. I did it with my ex-husband on a pedestal that really they didn't really, in truth, they weren't, you know, deserving of, because I was seeing their highest potential, you know, their true essence, you know, their authentic self. When, you know, we're in a dense reality here, we can't always function in that way on the 3D, you know, matrix reality, because there's so much density, and we have to navigate our way through that.
Do you know, sorry, Karen, David.
No, I was just going to say, fear is a hell of a thing, you know, like it, and that's the main control mechanism, one of the main control mechanisms. And I've seen it in people who I'm very close to who know it's all bullshit, but still wear the thing because they don't want to, they're too scared of going out there and being either accosted by a stranger, or maybe the police catch them or whatever, you know, all these different things.
Arguing. It takes so much energy to argue.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, the funny thing is that out of all the times I've been out there, and I've been in some pretty hairy situations, like catching public transport without a muzzle on is a very intense, whether it's a bus or a train, because the bus driver, you have to see the bus driver as you get on the bus. And then when the ticket guys come around, they're gonna, you're right there, you can't escape. You're sitting there. So but the funny thing is with that is, like, out of all the times I've been out there, I've only ever had like 4 or 5 conversations, you know, with people, and no one, barely anybody ever said anything. And even the train thing wasn't that bad. Like I got caught one time on the train, didn't get a fine.
So the anticipation is worse.
I was just very cheeky about it. But yeah, it's just, you know, you've got to kind of test these things, and it makes you stronger as a person. And as someone who doesn't like confrontation, which I think most people don't, every time you go out there in a situation like that, you're kind of inviting a confrontation, whether you like it or not. But it's going to make you stronger anyway. So it's worthwhile, in my opinion, you know, for many reasons.
If you're resonating on a frequency of fear or you know, sort of dread of that happening, then of course you're going to be drawing that into your experience. But if you're clear and sort of neutral in your vibrational field, and you're standing in your power and not wearing the mask and all those sorts of things, then there's much less likely that you'll draw it in. So it is, you can see in that way how it is a personal spiritual learning and an evolution of your own character through that experience, and being able to transmute the shadow aspect and the darkness and the fear and all those things.
I think that's so true, because I've had exactly the same situations. You know, we had times here it was completely, and there were notices all up over the London Underground about, you know, you will be prosecuted if you're on there. And the 4 of us, my children, my husband and I, we all just all walked straight through no one, and there's virtually no one else. And it was like we almost had an invisibility button around us. We walked past policemen, we walked past everyone, and no one said everything. And then at the airport, when I had a slightly different experience, again, it wasn't a hassle really at all. It was just that when you said you're clear, sort of no, it was like, right, okay, this is what we've got to do about it. And I think all of this is a growing experience. And when we were coming back to about how other people react, it's so hard because we live in society, we're community creatures, humans. We know how important, and if anything's taught us how important community, friendships, a sense of belonging is. And then how you rectify that with, everyone knows I've been reading through the 5 Agreements by Don Miguel, the Guide to Self-Mastery. But one of the main agreements, what everyone else thinks of you is their business. It's not your business at all. But it's so challenging for people, because when you're in 1 minute this social community animal that needs to get on in your community almost to survive, and then to have the strength of character to be yourself. We're all quite lucky, in terms of the fact that we've had lifestyles where we haven't been forced to do something to keep our jobs. And I am so in awe of all the people. I've got so many personal clients that have not been in that position. They've been doctors, they've been nurses, they've been other jobs where they have literally stepped away from lifelong careers to stand up for their principles of not being forced into do things. And I haven't been forced into that position over this period, and I'm very grateful for that. But I cannot tell you how much respect I've got for these people that have actually done that. And some of them have lost their homes, some of them have lost their marriages, some of them have lost relationships with children over it, and they've done it anyway. And all I would say to those people, not that they need anything from me, but is, wow, the resilience and the strength of character that you've brought in from being your authentic self. It's one of the key pillars of happiness and therefore health, is when you are living in alignment with your core values, and you are going to be rewarded tenfold for this, those people.
That's true. It reminds me of a friend who she had to leave her job, and then they accused her of being insane and tried to put that sort of label on her, like legally and everything, because she just wouldn't take this. So the things people have done, my hat literally goes off to them, and I really honor all those people out there that have stood in their truth throughout this whole process. You've been amazing. I'm getting a lot of energy down my spine, as I say that, goosebumps. You are amazing, and you really should honor yourself for being able to do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It not being in a position where I had to do it for a job or anything. I did meet a woman a while ago now, and she was a single mum with a fairly young, kind of like teenage child, who I think it was in high school, and she had a mortgage and everything, and she had no way of paying it, but she said, no, I'm not doing it. She just, and I was like, that's amazing. I don't know if I could have done that, like if I would have done that, because it's such a massive financial burden, and all the other things. That's just the mortgage aspect of things. When we talk about living, putting food on the table, paying bills, and all that stuff as well. And yeah, it's amazing to meet those people and know that those people exist, because if it weren't for those people, this could have gone really even further south than it did. And it went pretty damn far south. Let's be honest.
It really did. I mean, this is why it's been so beautiful being connected with you two and other people across the globe, because it's incredible how our memories and our minds are set up to forget. I mean, Medyhne and I have both given birth to children, and it's a classic example. Is like, if you knew how painful it was going to be, no one would ever have children, but the moment it's over, you're completely forgotten and you're ready for the next one, however traumatic that experience might have been. And I think this is how resilient all animals are, humans included. Because, David, when you messaged me the other day and said that muzzle mandates are, the next stage of being dropped, I was like, oh my God, I've forgotten about that, because they were dropped so long ago in the UK. I had completely forgotten that they were still in place in a lot of places. And this says a lot, isn't it, about how easily we forget. And I think, everyone in the spiritual community, we have this, a lot of people have a belief that we choose to come down here, and when we choose to come down here, we forget a lot of what we've known before to learn the next lessons. And you can see that playing out in this reality, can't you, by how quickly forget. But do you think we're at the time now with our are a great awakening at an individual level, the reactivating of our dormant strands of DNA, the junk DNA, as the scientists call it. Do you think we're at a time now where we're not going to forget these things, so therefore we'll make bigger leaps forward with humanity?
I believe
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I feel it. I think just the amount of people becoming aware of the narrative that was all false, you know, I think that in itself is an indication that people are stepping into that higher sort of DNA activation, and of being able to tell, you know, what's true and what's not true, and to rise above all the you know, there are certain frequencies that are sent to us to influence how we think, and so, you know, to be able to rise above all that, you know, I think that our DNA is with all the light that's coming down, looking at the metaphysical side of things, and it's happening every day, more and more light coming down, and as that happens, we are being able to activate all that, you know, 22 strands, they say, of you know, genetic ET DNA, and you know, over 90% of junk DNA, they say that we're going to be really being able to utilize, you know, in the future. And I'm happy that I'm seeing so much transition happening within every soul at the minute. It's really clear to me that this is happening, and within myself as well, of course. You know, you always gauge it too by your own barometer of how you're going, and I feel it in myself and I see it in others, and I think this bodes really well for humanity.
When do you think, I mean, obviously it's a gradual process, but when do you think there'll be a tipping point where you know, the majority of humanity may reach this point, you know, or it just becomes fully activated in even just a few people on the planet?
Many people have said to me they think we're so close, and I sort of feel it. It's like you're on the edge of a cliff and you're about to jump or something. I think it's really, really close, because the collective consciousness is so quickly accelerating in their growth that it's very close. And whether that is, you know, some wave of high vibrational light, photon light, you know, solar flash, whatever you want to call it, or just, you know, higher levels of solar flares, or, you know, whatever it is, that is activated by us as well. So we call that in through the raising in our consciousness, and then that to me is not far away.
I'm with you 100%. I'm going to publicly declare today, I am never forgetting these lessons I've got. You know, gone are the things that are part of whatever served me and other humans in the past that said, that had this mechanism for forgetting. You know, I think us and all the people that are watching shows like this, I do not think they're ever going to go back there again. I really do feel that we have reached that tipping point. And I think today for you in Australia, yesterday for us in the UK, London Bridge, the unicorn, I think this is a tipping point. I think it's a tipping point. I think it's symbolic at so many levels that we are entering a new era. You know, as I said, regardless of when she actually went, 90%, most people of, you know, we're different ages on here, we can't, you know, this has been a constant in our lives, and now this is a reset. This is, whether whatever level you're looking at, this is a massive reset moving forward. And I don't think we're ever going back. I think there's so many people now. Who'd have thought it 3 years ago that anyone would be listening to people like us? And I'm not being that rudely to us, I'm just saying, who would have thought how much has changed? How much has changed, because they have got so many people that are making these tremendous sacrifices to do this, and that those children that are seeing this, they're without any shadow of doubt, the children are at a completely different level of awareness for the good, from what I see. And I just think this is so exciting. So I definitely feel differently today. I feel we've hit a tipping point. And I do feel we've crossed it. And I feel there's so many people now that when they make that commitment and just tell their mind and bodies at a subconscious level You know, we're not changing, as Joe Dispenza would say, we're not changing matter from matter now. We're changing it from the quantum field. And I think this is going to accelerate hugely now with people into their own great awakening. You know, we talk about the med beds and the energy crisis and things like this. You know, Medyhne, you're so good at flipping the narrative, because I think so many people now are really saying, I have got a choice now in what I do with this information, and I am going to make a conscious choice, not slip into my unconscious programming, because now I'm aware that most of my life has been led from my unconscious programming. Once you're aware of it, then you can decide to do something differently. Does that make sense?
It reminds me of this, absolutely. It reminds me of this little kid, because speaking about children, how they're embodying exactly what you're talking about. There's this brilliant thing going around on social media of this little girl, and she says, I don't do negativity. Positive vibes, positive vibes. And she's like 4 or 3. And it's the cutest thing you've ever seen. She can't say the word positive. She's positive, you know, she can't, because she's so little. And that embodies, you know, exactly what you're talking about, which is just a completely different way of perceiving the world, where you're not tapping into all the darkness and all the shadow aspect, because it's not within you.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you think, as you are.
Mm.
You can't entertain anything. I did feel very different this morning as well when I woke up. I don't know what it was, and when I got the news, or even if it was before I got the news, I just felt like I feel lighter, you know.
Yeah.
I will say I knew it was happening. I put a post, you can check it if you don't believe me, you can check it on my YouTube, but I did put a post last night before it all happened, and I said, when I awake in the morning, I feel like that is going to be the announcement, because I could feel it in my bones. As we say in Australia, Kath and Kim. I felt that there was just this huge announcement that was going to happen. When I woke up in the morning, it would be done. And I think that is the anticipation of this big shift and change that we're all wanting to see.
You know how else you know it's a movie? I sent this to you, Catherine. I don't think I sent it to you, Medyhne. There's a woman here who's known as the Queen of Canberra, and I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
But she was also 96.
Yeah.
And she died on the same day.
That's the coincidence.
And she looks a lot like the Queen. She looks a lot like the Queen. And she dresses like her, and it was really strange. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, that's weird.
In my reality, I'm holding on to the fact that it's Operation Unicorn is a huge, that timeline has been chosen. And to me, I know we've been talking about Operation London Bridge for 2 years now, at least. Some people knew about it a lot longer ago.
And had the fire on London Bridge like last week or the week before, didn't they?
Yeah. And you know, that there was a lot of fear associated with the Operation London Bridge thing. You know, would it be a trigger for some mass events and things like this? And for me, I don't know. I make a choice. The Operation Unicorn, the fact that it happened in Scotland, or that we've been told it happened in Scotland, to me is a positive sign that takes away a lot of the possible negative timelines that could have been associated with this announcement. So,
and speaking of timelines, I've been doing a lot of work on my channel, and it's brilliant work with a guy called Ian Welch, and he has
love him.
Isn't he great? Affirmations and invocations to actually draw in the highest potential timeline, which is the golden age timeline, and they're brilliant. So please go to my channel and do some of these invocations, because every time one person does them, and you can do them on behalf of your family and friends, you're actually drawing in for humanity the highest potential timeline. And so consciously co-creating your existence and humanity's existence is part of this evolution. That's so important.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I watched one of those and commented on it, because they're really good videos. I've really encouraged everyone to do that. Well, I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. We will be back soon, because we've got lots more positive things to be talking about. But I wanted to spend the last sort of 5 minutes for both you, Medyhne, and David to update us on your latest venture, because you have been working on a musical collaboration together. So can you tell us about that? And then we're going to play out with that as well.
I'll start because Dave will have more to say on this than I will. But we wanted to do a song together, and Dave's been very patient with me because it's been a process. It's a little bit like our mini Bohemian Rhapsody song, isn't it? If I can say that. And so I came up with some song contributions, and then we worked together. And hasn't always been easy for Dave because it's got a lot of different elements, this song. It's very complex, actually, and it really embodies the frequency or the energy or the feeling of humanity being triumphant through this whole process, being victorious. And so I wanted to, with this song, put out that vibe that we've actually won, and that we can sort of on some level celebrate. And so that's the energy that I wanted to embody within that song. So thank you, Dave. Big thanks to you for everything you've done for this song. But take the floor, Dave. You tell everyone.
No, thank you. I mean, you did a really great job. Medyhne wrote all the lyrics, and I did the music. So, and then we kind of, and she already had a bit of an idea about the melody and everything, and we just kind of combined everything and molded it, and it was a bit of a process. I won't lie. It's been a long time in the making. Let's just say it's taken a few months, this one, but yeah, it's ready now. So
you're so talented. There's so many skills in all the different areas of instrumentation and everything, and your voice and everything. So great work.
So
right back at you.
What's the title of it before we play it?
It's called My Soul Is Free.
Okay, so are you able to play it for us, and then you'll send me the links afterwards so we can put below the video about how people can get it?
Yeah, I'll have to share my screen and then turn on the sound.
Born for this moment, born for this time. Don't need a reason, don't need a rhyme to say I am free. The world will agree. No more control, 'cause my soul is free. I'm on my knees to pray for a place. There's no division in our human race. We're lifting the veil on truth, so does lies. So people we love quit saying goodbye. Humanity wins, people awake, finding their power, controlling their fate. Humanity wins, people awake, finding their power.
For thousands of years, we've battled this foe. Finally now it's destined to go. Our souls are free, it's our destiny. Fighting for the light, grand victory. Humanity wins, people awake, finding the power, controlling their fate. Humanity wins, people awake, finding the power, evolving their fate. Humanity wins, people awake, finding the power, controlling their fate. Humanity wins, people awake, finding the power,
think that was the wrong version.
Oh.
But
Oh,
that's the main song, obviously. I'll get you the proper version later, after I figure out which one it is, because there were so many versions.
Yes, there were, and we're going to make a proper video too with images and things too. So I'll also share that with you both.
oh, that's so fantastic! I love it. Do you know, it really reminds me of a James Bond theme song.
Yeah, it is. It's got the same chord progression as most James Bond songs. So
yeah, I picked that up. Yeah, so if you want to put Daniel Craig in your video, feel free. Just from well, thank you so much, both of you. I've really enjoyed this conversation today. I think this is a really, really good point where we're all at as humanity, as a globe, as a planet. And, you know, my message to everyone today is when you're feeling a little bit anxious or stressed, look at how you can flip that narrative and turn it into something positive for you that you can really move forward with. Any final words from you, Medyhne?
Yes, I had a wonderful chat with a UK astrologer. Again, it's on my channel, but her name's Pamela Gregory. She's amazing, and she made I love her. She's wonderful, and she made a brilliant point to unplug in every way possible that you can from the 3D matrix. Unplug, you know, everything that you're doing that is still tapping into that. You want to be able to bow out gracefully now and just align your energies with a higher a higher reality than that, and find all the ways that you can to step out, because it is crumbling, it's disintegrating around us, and we don't want to be engaged in that interconnection anymore. And the more of us who step out of it and do that, the quicker we'll be able to step into the new reality.
Brilliant. Well, I'll definitely be going to watch that one. And what about you, David? Any final words from you?
Yeah, I'd just like to expand on what Medyhne said and possibly give some people maybe a way that they could unplug. As we all know, we're kind of addicted to technology in many ways, and my phone broke many months ago, and I didn't replace it for so long. When I finally did replace it, it was only because I wanted to shoot videos on it for music videos. But I found that even though I've got a phone, I'm not using it at the same levels as I used to before because I didn't have one for so long. And so if anybody wants a tip, get rid of your phone and see how you go for a couple of weeks. You know, if you can go for longer, great. But yeah, that's, I think, one of the first steps, or not one of the first steps, a possible first step to unplug from the matrix, because the more times we spend on our phone or our computer, we're in it, aren't we? We're in it.
Absolutely.
And I have been shooting behind the scenes, which haven't gone up on my channel yet, because I'm launching a new podcast, the Live, Love, Learn podcast. So they'll go up on the YouTube and the podcast platforms at the same time in a couple of weeks' time. But the whole theme of these talks with some really, really fascinating people is optimizing health and happiness, and really practical tips, like you've both just said, about how to unplug. So that will be hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Those will start to be available, and there's going to be some interesting new guests with some really, really good discussions, which I hope people will be able to find some practical help to help all of us move forward at this time. So thank you so much, both of you. What a day. I'm so pleased we had this in the diary. It felt perfect for me. And thank you for anyone who listened. I'll have the link to the new song below as well, as soon as that's available. And we'll be sharing it on all our Telegram channels and everything as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I just also want to say this really important celebratory moment in time, that really acknowledge you both for everything that you've done on social media to raise consciousness and to put awareness out there of the narrative that we believe is happening. You've both put a lot of blood, sweat and tears into that, and so I really wanted to acknowledge you both today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for dinner.
Thank you. Take care. Back soon.
Bye.